Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast with Jesse, Heater, and MJ. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing Netflix's third film, the 2016 action drama Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, starring Donnie, Yen, and Michelle Yeoh. So, welcome back, boys. How are we doing?
Good. Yeah, very good, mate.
We're sort of hitting the tracks now into our third episode, so we'll start off. Heater, do you want to give us your fast flicks little summary of the film?
Sure, mate. So for me, it's a legendary sword and the battle between those who want to protect it and keep it safe and those who want to steal it for power and control.
Ooh, I like that. Good little summary.
MJ?
Based 18 years after the original and 18 years after the great warrior Li Mubai's fateful death, Sword of Destiny gives us a vague snapshot of all the ramifications caused by this event. A narrative held together by a generally uninspired script, cast and purpose, it fails to continue on the journey that Ang Lee started back in 2000.
Ooh, a little bit of criticism in your summary.
I think all of mine have been.
Wow.
Didn't I start Ridiculous 6 with an aptly named...
Alright, so I've gone, the film picks up 18 years since the end of the first film, where the chick lost the love of her life who was the protector of a special sword. She decides to protect the sword again. A young girl looks up to her and wants her to mentor her. However, she has a special connection with a young man who is one of many who come to try and steal the sword. He is taken prisoner, and the girl explains his mother helped raise her. Although they build a connection, he turns on her, takes the sword. It's a trick, however, as he takes it to kill the leader of the sword stealers. He fails, and an all-out brawl happens, with the good guys winning and taking the sword to hide it where they believe it will be safe. All right.
Big one.
Good summary.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 2.
So, you haven't seen the original, have you?
I have not seen the original, no.
I think that's good. I think that's good that we get different analysis from people who... Because there's going to be a lot of people who watch this film who haven't seen the original.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on a lot of things because I think a lot of my thoughts were jaded by the fact that I really enjoyed the original.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain expectation that comes from any sequel.
Yeah.
And I think they missed the mark with so many things, or just ignored the mark with so many things. So I think that's important to caveat straight away.
Yeah.
Obviously not seeing the film, did you feel like they'd done a good job in making sure you knew what was going on?
Would have liked a bit more backstory on some of the characters, but again, I'm not sure if they were even in the original film to begin with. So I guess just as watching it just as a film, I felt I understood everything. It may have just been I didn't have enough time in this one to do some backstory on some characters, but yeah, I just would have liked a bit more backstory on some characters.
Well, Michelle Yeoh is the only main character to come back and reprise her role.
Okay.
I think the only other character that was actually even in the first one was Thunderfist, played by Yuen Woo-ping, and even in the first one, he's incredibly insignificant. So,
okay, yeah.
That's really it in terms of characters.
In that case, then I don't really feel like I missed out in terms of this one's story that they didn't make me understand anything.
So, what about the sword itself? Were you sitting there thinking, "What's the big deal with this sword?"
I mean, it's just a powerful sword, but there's plenty of kind of movies around about an object, and you just know from the start you get told it's a powerful sword. So sometimes you don't need to hear that history. You just get told it, and you know it, and you go, all right, this film now based around this powerful object.
I kind of feel like there was just too much assumed on this sword.
Yeah.
Because I mean, maybe if you didn't see the first one, and you can assume that it's like the first one. Yeah, the sword was important, but there was so much more about revenge to what was actually going on.
Yeah.
And the sword kind of changed hands a couple of times and no one was really too fast. They just wanted to make sure they killed the people they wanted to kill. And in this one, all of a sudden, the sword was just everything. And, and that's it. It was just, you just had to assume that was why all this stuff was happening.
Yeah, I think the sword in this one was massive MacGuffin, and it was I feel like the way that the sword changed hands as well was completely different in the first one. The first one was all about, the sword was important to the person who had it based on who they were, sort of thing. Whereas this one was more like,
I want that sword.
I want that sword, yeah.
Why did Hades, the bad guy, why did he want it? Just because he wanted it?
Yeah, it was a powerful sword.
Yeah. And I guess you also, from someone who hasn't seen the original, I know that straight away just because it's in the title. It's the Sword of Destiny. It's like, all right, this sword is this big thing. You're just kind of told straight away the sword is the be and all end all, it seems.
I think The sword, from what I've read, was a different sword to the one they used in the original too, so it looks a little bit
Physically,
different.
it looked nice. I must admit, I thought it looked really nice in this one.
And like the look of this film too, I thought there were certain stages where it was like they were almost trying to mimic the style
So
and the
much
look
of
the
it
original one. Like literally, like a lot of those scenes were like really hazy. Like, but I feel like the original has, like, obviously it's a little bit older, but the feel of that made it feel more naturalistic. Whereas this one, it makes it feel. And that really annoyed me in this film as well, was like the original film, all the establishing shots were these beautiful scenic shots of like real shots, and all the establishing shots in The Sword of Destiny, they're all CGI. They're all rubbish. Like, did my head in.
I have to say this straight away, that the English speaking in this film was so jarring. Like, I didn't expect, I just assumed it was going to be in Chinese like the first one, or in Mandarin like the first one. And it immediately took me away from the original film. As soon as they started talking, I was like, hang on, like, where'd that come from? And I think that the jarring side of it was there were so many different accents. Like, so many of the actors were like full-blown American, and they spoke with a full-blown American accent, and so many other ones were obviously English second language, and they're having these conversations as if they're from the same part of China, and it's all happening at the same time, and it was just so strange. Like,
One of those similar sort of thing that really got me was there's a scene where they're at like that sort of outdoor markety food place where they challenge each other to the fight, and the leader of the other guy, he's like an islander.
Yeah.
He's like a Maori islander. He's like the head of these Chinese guys. Yeah. Like, what on earth is going on? He's like the biggest Kiwi going around. And
I was looking at him real closely.
They're very, very interesting. They're based on books, these films, from what I can gather. There's 5 books in the series.
Right.
And this is based on the 5th and final book in the series.
Okay.
So, I thought that was a little bit interesting.
Well, maybe they missed a couple in between because, there were so many gaps from the first to the second one. But
this film had the same issues that Beast of No Nation had, that we were speaking about with the cinema release too. Like, they wanted to release it in the cinema in America, but the cinema chain said, nah, if you're just going to release it online the same day, not going to do it. But it
still
did
released though, didn't it?
It did. Had a good run in China.
Yeah.
Got 20.8 mil USD on its opening weekend in China.
Yeah. So that, that's...
China don't have Netflix though.
No, they don't.
They don't.
They don't. That is 100% correct.
Yeah, so that's obviously, that was the only one I could see.
But I think that only cost them about 20 million to make, so...
Success.
So, yeah, do we count that as a financial success?
How can you not? Like, if you're in the green.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much Netflix paid for it, so...
That's true.
Yeah, it's interesting. Critical ratings, I guess. Have we read anything that said that anyone liked it?
It's pretty negative.
Yeah, very negative. I had a look. I think 19% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
So it's pretty low. I guess we'll sort of get into a few of those things as we chat. I think it was quite obvious as well that a lot of it wasn't filmed in China.
Most of it was filmed in New Zealand.
Yeah. And to me, that sort of takes away from the whole story that the original set out to make, and especially the characters that it's trying to represent. Like, yeah, obviously maybe it was cheaper, easier, good production in New Zealand, but to me, I don't understand why you've got a Chinese movie and you're filming it in
such
lush
a famous
green.
Yeah, such a famous Chinese, I guess, brand name is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like, it's.
And the original did so well. Like, it's recognised as one of the better films, foreign films of all time, sort of thing. So, really difficult. Any news on or any ideas? Did it do well awards wise? Did it win any of the awards? I think I saw that it won an award for like best trailer.
Yeah.
So that's not telling you much.
It really didn't get
Someone
nominated
gets
for
a goal for
anything
that.
significant at all.
Well done to the editor who put the trailer together.
Yeah, good editing for a trailer. So what do we like? What do we like, or what do we like about this film?
I enjoy the characters, but having obviously not seen the first one, so I'm just going on this one. I really like the characters of Silent Wolf, Wei Fang, and Snowbase. I really enjoy their characters, and I guess the arcs, would like more story behind it, but the redemption of Silent Wolf and Wei Fang at the end, I really enjoyed that. One thing I actually did enjoy, I guess, comparing it to a lot of other action movies, there was a lot of good female characters, which I don't think you find in a lot of action movies these days. It's really male dominated. There was, I thought there was a good amount of female key figures in this movie, which was good to see.
And I've seen the original, like, I totally agree with that. But then, like, you think about the original, and like the action scenes in that was so much better.
And you know what? I still think the action and sword fighting scenes in this were pretty good. Like they were enjoyable to watch.
I really enjoyed them.
Yeah,
the action scenes in this, they were great.
But again, you can't not compare that to what it was. And you sit there and think, okay, we've had 18 years of special effects and stuntmen and everything that we can do to make it better. But it's still, for sitting there watching it, some of the scenes are pretty badass. Like even the scene, even though it was a kind of a so much of this film, I'm going to keep harping on that, felt like it was written by an algorithm. They tried to say everything that happened in the first film, let's do it again. Like even the character of what was her name, Snow Crane or Snow Vase, sorry. Her character was definitely trying to just be like Gen from the first one. But even so many of the scenes were the same as the first one. The fact that there was a fight in the bar as opposed to the fight in the restaurant, and even that scene in the first one where they fight in the trees, which is an amazing scene.
Great scene.
It's unbelievable. Then they had in this one the fight on the ice, and as soon as it happened, I'm like, so this is the tree scene coming into it. But I still loved that scene. I thought it was really cool the way they did that.
I thought that Frozen Lake scene was great.
Frozen Lake's a much better way to put it.
That was great.
That was a good scene. To your point on the characters, the characters were likable. I just thought they had no depth. None of them had any depth whatsoever. There was no emotional subtlety. So much of it was based on convenience. Like the idea that Silent Wolf, who was spoken about in the first one as, her husband, her husband-to-be passed away. The convenience of him coming back to give Michelle Yeoh's character something to care about is like, it's almost disrespectful to the audience. Just go, oh crap, we've got to think of something to get her in. Oh, let's just bring him back. Like little things like that. Combined, like even the two younger characters, Wei Fang and Snow Vase, had no depth at all. It was almost like they just gained this little motivation right near the end of the film to give them something worth fighting for. And again, I'm comparing it to the first one, which is probably an issue, but it just wasn't up to scratch.
In saying that, one of the notes I've had, obviously I've not seen the original, is that that the Wei Fang and Snow Vase, it just felt forced. It felt like them kind of together was just forced.
It was really convenient.
Yeah.
No, and I thought a lot of the dialogue between them while he was locked in the cage was like a little bit meh. Like it was just like it was like she's trying to focus and he's trying to distract her, and she's like, "No, stop distracting me." Yeah, right. Yeah, good progression there. We're getting places. I did like Michelle Yeoh's character. I liked how you could see the progression of her from when we saw her in the original film. There was scenes she'd aged, and there were scenes where they highlighted that she'd aged. Like there was at the start, she was like standing out, looking out over the greenery, and you could see the wrinkles on her face, and you could see that she was much older than she was in the original film. So I thought that was good, and sort of showed her wisdom and how she obviously had matured a lot, and
when she lived a life of solace after that, basically, and
exactly
now she's sort of had the chance to take a student, and I mean she's still a badass fighter. That's what I liked about that. She hasn't lost anything in that.
No, and like a lot of those scenes, the scenes where she was doing the martial arts, I thought they were really good as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the highlight of the film, and I think that would have been the appeal of making it in the first place. We've got this awesome film from a couple of decades ago that was largely based on awesome martial arts and that sort of stuff, and now we've had 18 years of making it better. Let's blow this out of the water. But I mean, they just didn't have any script to work with from the start.
I hadn't seen any by the director. I hadn't seen any other of the director's work. I think mainly Chinese films.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything else either.
What about the other actors? Have you guys seen Michelle Yeoh in anything? Because I have. I love her in Star Trek Discovery. She's great in that show. It's another Netflix original for everywhere except the USA and Canada. She's really, really good in that. And Donnie Yen,
he's been in a few things.
He's been quite a few things, and I loved seeing him in this because I haven't seen a lot of martial arts films, but I have seen Ip Man, and he plays Ip Man.
Yeah, big in Ip Man, isn't he?
Yeah, I haven't seen the sequels or anything, but the first Ip Man I thought was a really, really good martial arts film. you guys seen any of them in anything else that you can think of?
Well, the thing for me, and this is, I mean, we do have a section on this wonderful podcast called IMDb, where we talk about the time that we actually went on to IMDb. But the thing that got me was the guy who plays Wei Fang was Mike Chang from Glee, which I didn't know that. So he's one of the main characters in Glee. So I've obviously seen him in Glee, and he's a very American actor.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise that till I checked it. So I guess kudos to him for showing a bit of versatility.
While we're on the IMDb thing, so I literally got on the IMDb just to see if there was, like, this was before I'd researched and stuff, to see who else was actually from the original.
Yeah.
Just to go through the cast and speak about, no.
That kind of got me a bit.
I was like, yeah. Heath.
Do you want me to do my
Yeah.
IMDb now?
Yeah.
Well, what you spoke about before at that the kind of the tavern fight, the leader of the mercenaries, is the Kiwi Islander bloke. I'm looking at him going, surely that's Jake from Once Were Warriors.
Yeah.
So I had to look that up straight away. I'm like, it's not Jake.
That wasn't Jake. Okay.
What wasn't Jake from Once Were Warriors?
Jake must.
I saw him and I went, surely not. Like that. Surely that's not him.
I didn't think it was him. But
He looked. I just thought he looked so familiar to him. So I had to look that up and go, oh no. Wasn't him, but that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is getting a bit strange.
Jake the Musk.
Jake the Musk.
Obviously, like, filmed in New Zealand, but why did they pick that guy to play the lead of that gang? Like,
Who was he? Was he anyone?
No, is it not?
like, why didn't they pick an Asian character?
Why didn't they have the movie in Chinese? I mean, yeah. So, going back to IMDb, the only other one I had was the guy who played Flying Blade, who is Chris Pang, who is a Melbourne boy from Crazy Rich Asians and also Tomorrow When the War Began, but recognise him straight away.
He plays Lee.
In Tomorrow When the War Began?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
He's Lee, isn't he?
Yeah. He's Colin from Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
He's a Melbourne boy. But again, you could just tell, like, their accents and stuff. You could see the guys who just were so much more comfortable speaking with that American accent compared to those who clearly weren't, and it was just so jarring.
So we've spoken briefly about this, but standout scenes that you think didn't work.
I mean, just from kind of an action point of view, I love the final fight scene with everyone involved. I thought that was some great work there.
So I liked the fight scene, but I didn't like the whole tower thing that they were fighting on. It just looked a little bit fake.
Yeah.
A little bit fake, but I did like how they played that connection out of from the start when he's hanging off the cliff, and then it's like reversed when he's hanging off the top of the tower. They reverse those roles. I thought that was quite clever.
How convenient though when he comes back from the dead, the guy who killed him in inverted commas is the bad guy in this film as well. Like, just
surprise! They're full of good surprises in this film. I liked the continuity as well of that the necklace with the the gap in the middle with the training. The training, and then obviously that they could use that at the end as.
That's one thing actually. I mean, we talked about in the last couple of podcasts, kind of the film length. This was a 90-minute film. I wouldn't have minded this movie going a bit longer because I would have liked to see more training scenes between you and Snowbase.
She didn't really develop. There was none of that montage.
And the training scenes started off really well, and then it was kind of like, now we're into the big fight. I would have liked. I enjoyed watching the training scenes. I would have liked to see more training scenes between those two.
Literally there's a scene, she gets drunk, she gets angry at her, makes her stand there for hours on end, and then, cool, you're good to fight. That was about it.
But I mean, she was obviously already a talented fighter before it happened. Like that, actually, that first scene with her and Wei Feng when they're trying to steal the sword initially and they're trying to be quiet.
Yeah.
I thought that was done pretty well when they kept knocking over vases and stuff and catching it. And that was I enjoyed that.
So some sort of ideas I've got about this is like the master and student. Obviously, in a lot of Western films, it's sort of played out a different way. You think like Star Wars, like you've got your Luke Skywalker and your Obi-Wan Kenobis, or Luke and Yoda. Avengers, you've got Spider-Man, Iron Man, all working together. How does the master and student, like, or someone having a mentor, sort of play out differently in like sort of an Eastern film? I think it's very different. I think it's massively different.
I mean, a lot of it comes down to them being that like father figure, and you need to avenge them if they die, and it becomes everything, that relationship. Like you give everything to your master as opposed to learning and surpassing and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I just think it's like different when you obviously different cultures, different cinema, and you're seeing like you said, they're dedicated to everything, whereas it's more a mentor.
Yeah, I've taught you, off you go into the world.
Do your own sort of thing, rather than just hang around and be with that person.
You're right, and that's just the cultural thing, full stop, isn't it?
Yeah.
You notice that in all those films.
So the redemption towards the end you spoke about before, Heath, like Snow, Vase made that promise to look out for Wei Fang, and she did that. Do you think she was redeemed at the end? Do you think that them riding off on those horses to go bury the sword was like, oh yeah, she's done the right in the world now, so she's going to live happily ever after, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's kind of the corny ending, but it's the way that
it's another master thing though. Is her fulfilling her. At the end of the day, it was her master. Promise, she taught her everything she knew, and that was her life goal.
So, do you think now that she's transgressed to having a new master, or is she now sort of independent? Like, is she gonna? Because, like, obviously, that you see them riding off with the other two characters as well.
Yeah.
Like, are they following them, or are they going to go their separate ways? Do you think? So she's just going to continually be a follower for her whole life.
I reckon they're going off on their separate ways.
Do you ever lose your master though? Like in the first one, what's his name? Lu Mu Bei is like the great swordsman that they all talk about and rave about, and he never loses sight of his master. His whole goal is to avenge the death of his master. So I mean, it's not being a follower if she's going to stick around with Michelle Yeoh's character.
Good. So what are some things that sort of, you thought were good, bad, stood out? Like for this, when I was watching this, I watch all my films with subtitles. The first 10 minutes of this film, the subtitles did not match up one bit with the dialogue.
I started watching it with subtitles because I assumed it was going to be in Chinese. I don't generally watch in subtitles, I do occasionally. And so I had subtitles on for this, and I noticed that as well. Sometimes there was like a line in the subtitles that wasn't in the film.
Yeah,
they just
completely different.
But it worked.
Yeah.
But it was almost like they'd cut that line out of the movie, but they hadn't cut it out of the subtitles.
Yeah, like they took the script and literally just hashed the script over the top, and it didn't matter where what they edited or what they took out. That did my head inside. I couldn't believe it. I was like, surely there's someone's job to make sure that, like if you're a deaf person and you're trying to watch it and you're like watching it, like it doesn't make any sense. Like surely it's not that someone.
If you're a deaf person, you're getting more intel than someone who's not watching with subtitles. I really enjoyed the irony, and this is talking about the sword, which is obviously a key motive throughout the film. I enjoyed the irony of Hades finally getting his hands on that sword and instantly being slain by his own sword. It begs the question for me, does that mean that the sword itself just isn't that important? Because here we go, this guy had this sword anyway, that was the thing that killed him. Or had that sword already made the decision? I think as he said when he got killed, he's like, oh no, this sword is it's a sword that chooses, or it's too powerful or something.
I think it's more like who's worthy of the sword.
I kind of preferred it to be, why are you fighting over this sword when this sword that you had all along killed you? I like that.
I like that too, but like going back to the original film, I feel like it's more that the sword chooses who
I thought that too.
Who's gonna work.
And you know what? If that's the case, I wish he didn't say that line.
But some of the dialogue in this though, like some of the lines, you're like, oh well, you just got to live with it. You just got to live with what's going on. Like especially, compared to the I don't know. Maybe it's because we're seeing a story that's meant to be told in a different language in English.
Maybe, yeah.
And maybe the dialogue in the original one was rubbish, but we only know it because what we're reading is the subtitles.
I'm sure it's not.
Who knows?
Yeah, I know you're saying that.
Who knows?
But I also think that it was a shocking script. It really was. They had nothing to work with this, and I think the characters lacking any depth. It wasn't through the actors not trying.
Yeah.
It was through, that's what they had to go with, and I think there was not enough there. I think they were up against it from the start.
Would this have worked better on the big screen? I think the fight scenes would have been great on the big screen.
Totally agree.
It would look good.
Exactly what I think. Yeah.
I actually really like the music in the movie as well. One of the music kind of, especially there's a few times kind of there when you get introduced in Penny and on the tower, there's some really good score behind it, which I think would have also sounded really great in the cinema as well.
Hadn't even thought of the music, so that's a good pickup. When would you any time of the day you try and watch it? Any location?
I remember watching this, I think it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was just feeling pretty lazy. I thought, all right, I'm going to watch this one now. That initial fight scene just hooked me in straight away, and I was like, oh, cool, all right, this is going to be good. So I actually think it's kind of any time of day, just because I know just from my point of view, I was feeling quite lazy, but that first scene hooked me in And I was like, all right, I'm aware now. I'm into this.
That's fair. I don't think there's any... some movies you can't watch during the day because you're just not in that mindset. This film's pretty good to watch whenever. And I think it's based on that sword fighting and martial arts, which unfortunately isn't good enough to solely drive the film. It still probably is the biggest appeal of the film.
I reckon you need to be able to focus too, because I don't know whether it's because I'd seen the first film, I was getting confused with the characters, but I think you need to keep a close focus on what's going on so you can understand who's who and what they're trying to do. But I don't know whether that was just me overthinking because I'm trying to connect people to the first film.
That's impossible not to do, and that I'm glad we're 25 minutes in. I haven't mentioned it yet because this is almost my biggest bugbear, is that the fact that they completely ignored the importance of Jen Yu and Dark Cloud's character relationship from the first one. Like, completely ignored it, and I think it was because they were trying to replicate it with Snow Vase and Wei Fang.
Yeah, it's like a mirroring story.
Yeah, but like by the end of the first film, they were the two most significant characters. That's where the story was heading, and at least to touch on it and see what actually happened from that. Because as soon as I saw that Ziyi Zhang wasn't in the cast, I was like, oh, don't do it. Like, don't just ignore her. It's like when you watch American Pie 3 and they don't mention Oz. They just don't mention him at all.
That was just...
And they take the piss out of it the next time. They're like, oh, he's like, sorry, man, I didn't come to your wedding. I was like, just because Chris Klein wanted more money and they wouldn't give it to him. But it bothers me when that sort of stuff happens in a sequel. It disrespects the audience. And obviously, I'm sure they would have loved some sort of ability to tie her into it. Maybe she didn't agree to it. She's obviously a very big actor now. But it just give you some sort of mention of it. Don't ignore it, because fans of the first one, they're hanging out for something on that, and they didn't give it to you.
How did you feel at the start of the film when the Weinstein logo came across the screen?
So
I felt a little like, I was like, oh.
And I think that's going to be an issue for a long time.
Yeah.
But it confused. I didn't know it was a Weinstein film.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until it came up at the start, and I put that in my notes as well because that threw me. But yeah, also the connotations with it now. That's just a reality. There's plenty of good Weinstein films out there.
There are, but yeah, I don't know.
I guess you see it when it comes on. You're like, right, okay. But then as soon as the movie got into it, I completely forgot about it, and it didn't really impact my viewing of it.
What about you, Jess?
I don't know whether this is the right thing to think or whether it's me being... I think like they should almost remove that logo from films. Go back. Especially, now you've got Netflix streaming service. Wouldn't take them much to take that logo out.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a defunct company. I think this was their third last film that they released before they went bankrupt. So their catalogue's been bought out by another studio. So that studio should just go back, wipe Weinstein off the top of them all and put their logo on it.
Yeah, as you're right, it's a streaming service. It's not difficult to go and
difficult
change
to
it. Obviously, if you already own a DVD, it's going to be difficult. But it's a very good point.
Scratch the scene out of there.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah.
It's good.
The end. Would it have been better if Snow died?
To be honest, I don't know if it would have been better or worse. I just... Her character didn't have enough significance to me. I wasn't following her story as much as I was following the other two.
I would have really liked for her to die because, like, seriously, instead of like some corny happy ending where they ride off into the sunset with the sword and everyone's happy, kill her off.
Yeah, we might have had a bit more emotional resonance.
Yeah, and then we can see the impact it had on...
I think if they had a lot, more of a backstory into the relationship with Wei Fang and Snow Vase, and there was just more content on that, then if she dies and you see maybe kind of the emotions of Wei Fang, but I just don't think there was enough kind of backstory where if she died, there'd be
really wasn't, was there?
There'd be enough significance as to we've lost someone great, because there just wasn't enough backstory
to. This is the second movie in a row.
Relationship.
This is the second movie in a row we've looked at where they use going back in time through black and white fades, like they did in the Ridiculous Six as well. And to me, like that just does my head in. Like when you go back to see how the mother died or whatever, it's just like, come on, we're a pretty smart audience.
That's the thing. It treats you as an idiot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, we don't need to be have it spelt out for us on the screen.
Yeah. Was there some sort of romantic connection between those two? Was that there? Were they trying to force something there?
I felt you were forced into a romantic connection between them.
Because the connection for them anyway felt forced. That they were. There was all of a sudden they just became really close because the story that they told about them sharing the same mother and master or whatever. They weren't brother and sister, so it wasn't any problem with them having any sort of romantic connection. But I wasn't sure if there was one or not.
I did feel like there was something there,
Yeah.
but it felt like I was forced to believe there was something there.
Maybe if they had done a better job of that, they could have killed her off better as well.
Yeah,
It would have meant something.
Yeah, would have actually cared about her dying. And then you would have seen an impact on him and all that sort of stuff. Any other observations?
Iron Crow, who was the mentor of Wei Fang, his weapon of choice was very poor, I thought. The 2 sticks of the Iron Crow's feet. You know, he was fighting against Silent Wolf on the ice. He ended up with just got his sticks with his crows. Right. Just a really poor choice of weapon, I thought. I was just watching him, you know, you see all the great fights, you know, got the flying daggers and the swords and stuff, and then this guy with his 2 sticks. It's just like, nah. Poor choice of weapon.
Even a guy with, you know, thunder fists, he's fighting with his own arms in a sword fight.
I'll tell you what else, what really did my head in was at the end, just before they ride off into the sunset, they did like that montage of all the people who died along the way.
So,
come on.
That was
Is there anything interesting about the fact that all the guys who came with Silent Wolf died? Is that, obviously he's not their master, so it's not the same as like a master-apprentice relationship, but when the last one to die, I think, was Flying Blade, and I was like, well, of course he's going to die. You can't just leave one of them. But it just felt interesting that all these accomplished fighters, they just killed them all off.
I felt like, because they all...
I cared more about them than I cared.
They all joined him, I guess, because they thought it was their duty and
it was the right thing to do.
It was the honour to do, and, you know, I guess...
Weren't they doing it for money?
Well, that was half the...
And they kept insinuating that they were doing it for money.
Well, they kept talking about, I hope you're getting paid enough for this, but then they were also just like, yeah, but no, this is why I do it. Sort of thing.
I felt like it was more, they thought it was the right thing to do rather than money, and I guess the thing is, you know, their creed was that, you know, they'd be willing to die for this cause, and it shows them dying for this cause. They were happy, not happy to do it, but that they took that risk knowing... I'm prepared to die for this cause because it's the right thing to do.
It almost justifies them a little bit more. Even though I thought they were probably the most likeable characters in the film.
Oh, yeah.
And you actually cared for them a bit more as well.
Yeah, you did, absolutely.
Yeah.
You did.
There's a bit more to them.
And, you know, they brought a bit of entertainment as well, obviously, with their skills. So, time to give our rating. Out of 5, we each give the film a rating, and then we're going to add them up to average them out to see, as a team, what we give it out of 5. MJ?
2.5 for me. I think the martial arts and the sword fighting was good to watch. The journey was not a bad journey to be on. I didn't mind following it, but as I said, I think they're up against it from the start with a very unimaginative script based on a hell of a lot of convenience and a bit of a disrespect to the audience. But combine that with the fact that there was no real depth built into any character, and they're up against it.
Peter?
Yeah, I obviously not seeing the original. I thought it was just a good action film. I love the fight scenes; they were great. But it was a bit predictable. I thought the movie, again, as MJ said, the depth there wasn't great in terms of the storytelling. But for me, it was still a pretty enjoyable movie to watch. I gave it 3 out of 5.
I'm along the same lines. I've gone 3 out of 5 as well. But that's part of that rating is because the original for me is like almost close to a perfect movie. So to give this anything higher than a 3, it just isn't going to happen because of like what you guys have said that the fight scenes are great, the action's really good, but obviously the character development is quite lacking, which sort of brings the film down a little bit. So before we wrap up, I want to talk about our social media platforms, and we're going to put a question out there this week on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Flix Forum. But for you guys, what is the best sequel of all time? Ooh, off the top of your head, this one's a surprise one. Oh, best sequel of all time. So I'm going to go Toy Story 2 because I think Toy Story 2.
Does Toy Story 3 count as a sequel?
I don't know if that because I like Toy Story 3 better than Toy Story 2, but I reckon Toy Story 2 is close to one of the best sequels of all time. Sorry, I have put you on the spot. It's tough, but it's that question, like, because obviously this sequel we've all said it's not great.
You know what you think with a good sequel is something that doesn't disgrace the original, almost. That's almost what a good sequel is.
Yeah. For me, it's Terminator 2.
Ooh, Judgment Day. I thought you might have gone with Anchorman 2, but that's right.
Terminator 2 was a brilliant sequel that did, as MJ said, it did justice to the first movie. Terminator 2 was a great movie.
And that's probably the best out of any of those Terminator movies, almost.
Well, you're wrong there, but...
Oh, really?
The first one's the best.
Oh, Well, that's
I
fine.
can't think of many films that actually supersede the original. And I think if you like the original, it's
Godfather Part 2.
well. That's
Godfather Part 2 is a very good movie.
I'm going to say American Pie 2. I'm going to reference American Pie twice.
That was brilliant.
Twice in a martial arts film podcast. I'm going to reference American Pie twice, but it had big shoes to fill and it filled it.
Good.
I agree with
Well, looking forward to hearing what you guys think. That'll be on our social media.
Sure, there's
page.
another one though. I'm going to get on social media when I think of another one.
And that'll be on there this week. So the film we're looking at next week is the 2016 adventure comedy Pee-wee's Big Holiday, starring Paul Rubens. So if you have 90 minutes to spare, have a watch of that film so you can be included in our discussion next week.
We do prefer it when you watch it beforehand, so you can enjoy the discussion more, and we don't have to worry about spoilers, which we don't worry about anyway. So
Correct. So
you know this by now.
I do spoil every movie.
thanks again, guys. Good talking.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you guys next week.
See you then.
Cheers.